What if a nuclear war started now? It begins with a sudden blinding flash. A missile, launched from an unknown location, detonates over a major city. Within seconds, tens of thousands are vaporized in an intense wave of heat and pressure. Skyscrapers melt, glass turns to liquid, and entire neighborhoods vanish in a blinding fireball. Moments later, military forces retaliate. Missile silos around the world erupt, launching hundreds of warheads into the sky. The global network of alliances triggers a chain reaction. The world plunges into nuclear chaos. Cities like New York, Beijing, Moscow, London, and Tokyo become primary targets. Strategic military sites, power grids, and communication hubs are obliterated. The death toll in the first hour surpasses 50 million. Each nuclear detonation unleashes unimaginable destruction. The blast radius stretches for miles, vaporizing everything in its path. The intense heat ignites everything flammable: cars, trees, and buildings, creating raging firestorms that burn for hours. The shockwave follows, flattening structures and throwing debris like deadly projectiles. Survivors near ground zero are blinded by the flash, deafened by the explosion, and burned by superheated winds. Then comes the radiation. Fallout clouds rise high into the stratosphere, carried by winds across continents. Radioactive dust rains down on distant cities, poisoning the air, water, and soil. Those who breathe the contaminated air develop severe radiation sickness. Vomiting, bleeding, and hair loss set in within hours. Governments crumble as panic spreads. Emergency services are overwhelmed. Cities not directly hit by bombs still face fallout, contaminated food supplies, and the collapse of transportation networks. Law and order disintegrate. Survivors compete for dwindling resources. In remote areas, people flee to forests and mountains in search of clean water and shelter. Communication lines are destroyed, leaving survivors cut off from the outside world. Misinformation spreads rapidly, fueling paranoia and violence. Bands of scavengers roam the ruins, looting whatever they can find. As hundreds of fires rage across the globe, vast columns of black soot rise into the atmosphere. The soot thickens the sky, blocking sunlight for months, possibly years. Temperatures plunge, causing global crops to fail. Farmlands freeze, rivers ice over, and summer feels like winter. Starvation becomes the next great killer, as food supplies dwindle and distribution networks collapse. Experts predict that even a limited nuclear war would lower global temperatures by 1 to 2 degrees Celsius, while a full-scale war could trigger a catastrophic 10 degrees Celsius drop. Crops fail worldwide, and famine spreads faster than relief efforts can handle. Radiation poisoning spreads far beyond the initial blast zones. Cancer rates skyrocket, and birth defects plague future generations. In densely populated areas, the absence of functioning sewage systems, clean water, and medicine sparks the spread of disease. Cholera, dysentery, and respiratory infections become rampant. Those who survive the initial blasts now face an entirely new threat: the slow decay of their environment and bodies. Nations lucky enough to avoid direct strikes, perhaps South America, parts of Africa, or Oceania, become power hubs for displaced survivors. But the influx of desperate refugees sparks conflict over resources. New governments rise in isolated regions, each clinging to whatever food, medicine, and fuel they can protect. Cities turn into heavily guarded fortresses, fearing waves of refugees and hostile scavengers. The United Nations disbands, and global diplomacy dissolves into chaos. Modern society's dependence on satellites, electronics, and communication networks collapses. The electromagnetic pulses, EMPs, from nuclear detonations destroy electrical grids worldwide. Internet networks, GPS satellites, and financial systems vanish overnight. Planes fall from the sky, and cars stop working as their electrical systems fry. The modern world regresses by centuries in a matter of hours. Survivors gather in isolated regions, forming tight-knit communities that rely on trade, scavenging, and agriculture. Knowledge from surviving engineers, doctors, and scientists becomes crucial. New leaders emerge, some uniting communities under shared goals, others ruling through violence and fear. Religion and superstition spread rapidly, filling the void left by lost institutions. With the climate still unstable and resources scarce, survival remains a constant battle. The survivors live in constant fear of radiation, of hunger, of violence. Children grow up learning to live underground, to filter contaminated water, and to avoid strangers. Suicide rates skyrocket. Survivors haunted by the loss of loved ones or the horrors they witnessed struggle to maintain hope. Some believe humanity is cursed. Others try to build new lives in the ashes. Decades later, Earth begins to heal. The soot clears and sunlight slowly returns. But the world is unrecognizable. Cities are reduced to skeletons of steel and concrete. Forests have overtaken crumbled highways. Survivors cling to forgotten scraps of technology, while new societies form around the principles of survival and adaptation. The Earth's population may be reduced to 1/10 of its original size, and modern civilization, as we know it, may never return. But some believe that in the ashes of the old world, humanity has a chance to start over, stronger, wiser, and more united than ever before. Would civilization truly rebuild? Or would this be the final chapter for humankind?